Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature video number 122, 1900 or the Last President, an Ingersoll Lockwood work that I decided to release, sort of a companion to like the Baron Trump stuff. He's got a work on the laconic cult, sort of human superstition and some of these things. Very interesting author. As always, link in the description to my edition of this work and a second to my books blog. On there you can also find other works like Vreel, The Power of the Coming Race, The New Atlantis, some of these other sort of occult fiction works that inform human spirituality. Lockwood's work, I believe, will be eventually seen in that same light simply because it overlaps so heavily with modern times. Now, the Baron Trump works are self-explanatory. We're talking about essentially a connection to Trump's son or Trump himself, sort of the fantastical occult side of that, some imagery that appears to have been linked to reality. Ingersoll Lockwood appears to have been an occultist, at least in a humorous manner. Laconic cult deals with human superstition. He wrote at least a few works, short works on miracles and some of these Catholic figures. Apparently was a Catholic. There are occult overtones in this work, which is ostensibly political satire. And then you have sort of the sword and sorcery style of fairy fantasy from the period in Baron Trump, in the marvelous underground adventure and so forth. If we look at just this work, I won't give away too much of the plot because it's also an interesting read as a fiction piece. It's fairly short, it's, I believe 43 pages, so it's not very long. And there is no other that I know of modern edition of this work in paperback. That is, if you want a physical copy of this work, you're getting my edition, because otherwise you're reading some ebook format or you're using like archive.org for the original scan of the files. But I don't believe in the last century anyone's released an edition of 1900. It lists a Pence in this fictional president's cabinet, which, going along with all the connections we see in the Baron Trump works, and the idea of the happening and so forth is listed here. It talks specifically about prognostication, which is prediction, prophecy, essentially, fortune-telling, which is a strange inclusion to find in a work that has nothing specifically on the surface to do with mysticism. It talks about the rise of populism, and how the rise of populism heralds the death knell of the Republic, because then you get socialism and anarchism rising up and the resulting problems that I won't get into too much. But it's an interesting occult fiction piece, and I class it as occult fiction because I have to believe that this particular author, based on the core of work he created that I've reviewed so far, and based on the number of overlapping principles between the modern age and his work at the end of the 1800s, we're talking more than 100 years ago, it appears to exhibit a significant amount of synchronicity, like it's greater than the memetics we saw in like Châtelet or something like that. That's how significant his core of literature really was. Now I'm looking through Laconic Cult now. A kind individual managed to find a copy in a library in Manitoba, I believe, and photographed the pages. It may be that there are pages missing, and somebody else has promised to obtain scans of them. It doesn't matter if it's photographs or scans as far as I'm concerned. I can edit it regardless. But if those aren't missing pages and were just accidentally missed, if those actually are in the book, it would be nice to see them, because otherwise the edition would have like missing pages and people don't want to see that. I believe there is one other copy extant in a library, and I can't remember which library it was. If someone can dig out that info from the archives on Politically Incorrect on 4chan, I can't remember, again, where it was listed as being. If there are pages missing in the Manitoba copy, they may be present in the other. Even if there are additional missing pages, hopefully the entire manuscript can be reconstructed if there's anything missing in one or both of them. That would be interesting because that's more explicitly mystic. It has to do with human superstition. And it's of interest to me. For an author, he's writing about the Baron Trump, and he's writing about the end of the American Republic and populism and Pence in his cabinet. And he's writing works of an ostensibly occult nature. What more am I supposed to say about all the connections that have been made here? And this is someone who for a century wasn't even spoken of. He was totally forgotten. Nobody knew his work existed in the modern era. Nobody even knew about it. Like, people are doing a frantic dig through library archives trying to find a few of his works that are still missing, because there might only be one or two copies left in existence in the entire world. Now, part of me, the bibliophile, the literary history buff part of me, just wants to preserve them and promulgate them to new generations so that they remain available. Like, if you got 2 copies of a work, like there are only 2 copies of Laconic Cult, apparently, extant in any library collections. There may be more in private collections, but probably not very many. What happens if there's a fire and one of those copies is destroyed? You only got 1 copy left in the world. You got a missing page in the 1 copy that's left. Whoops, it's lost forever. I don't want it to end up like Plato's work if it's about occult topics. Definitely not. So it's of transcendent importance that I be supplied with those files for Laconic Cult, because that's one I intend to release. I do intend to at least think about working on Baron Trump's Underground Adventure, but the thing is, there are already modern editions of that. I can produce them to be a lot more inexpensive for those who want physical copies. Perhaps more appealing to the eye, because some of them, at least one of them I believe is a facsimile. As always, people trying to rip off the audience saying, hey, I'll just take this archive.org document, upload it as a PDF for the interior files. Yeah, it'll be blurry. Yeah, it'll keep all the imperfections and maybe the pictures are slanted a little bit, but that's somehow okay to do. I don't know why Amazon lets people do that. I don't understand the idea. It's like they always have like 1-star ratings, and yet Amazon's like, oh, books that are have low ratings might be taken off Amazon, but not if apparently all you do is create facsimile editions. It doesn't make any sense to me, and it pisses me off because I've actually looked through some of these and they're so terrible. So I try to hand edit everything. I wanted to actually create them in a proper format for future generations. But Laconic Cult I'm interested in. This is 1900, The Last President. I think this might have more mystic overtones than any of his other works that I've seen, including my skimming through the Baron Trump stuff, because those are really billed as specifically fiction. Laconic Cult is like the cult of immortality and something like that. And it shows like side-by-side pictures of the author, Ingersoll Lockwood, when he's 30 versus when he's 90. He's like, oh, I haven't changed at all. I'm immortal, basically. Anyway, I don't even think we know when he died, which is really spooky dooky. It's like he was setting up, I think it was, part of it might have been he was setting up long-term to really, really screw with people's minds. And if that's the case, if he was doing some like weird divination, he really hit the mark, because people are all sorts of freaked out about his work. And it's not a surprise, it's a little freaky to me too. When I saw that Pence was in the cabinet of this fictional last president, I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be an interesting read. But definitely, my edition's on Amazon. I believe the ebook edition is available. When you go to the link, I believe you can switch editions. But if you want it as like ebook, you can get it on archive.org. So unless you want it in a new format, for your tablet or something, for, going easy on your eyes or something, you probably would like a paperback more. But it is available now. I will be looking through Laconic Cult. I'll be looking through the Baron Trump works, trying to compile material. I've got to do more research. We barely know anything about this author other than a few blurbs from his own works. Other than that, like a century passes, nobody knows anything about him. We don't even know, did he actually acquire some weird immortality and he's still walking around somewhere looking the same? He looks a little bit like Geert Wilders, actually. Geert Wilders. Rather, sorry, because you're from the Dutch lands. But yeah, interesting work overall. There's some memetics there. There's some occultism. That's about all. Peace out.